This is what's going on, folks, at home. If you're trying to figure this out, if you're scratching your heads, you're seeing the video, you see droves of people, 2.4 million people coming over the border illegally, the president allowing, the Democrats in charge of Congress are allowing it. The deal is they're going to turn them into voters. You just heard it. They don't have any problem with that. They celebrate it. Here's the deal. We have a problem with it. The Constitution has a problem with it. American elections should be decided by American citizens.
When the president delivers the copies to those top legal officers, the two top legislative officers in that co-equal branch of government, those are the official documents of the House. And if you tear those up, you violated a specific statute in the criminal code.
It is absolutely nightmarish and surreal to hear the description of what these people are doing to the bodies of young children.
Joseph Biden has engaged in bribery schemes, pay-to-play schemes. And then Article 2, Section 4 says, the president shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors.
But we have to acknowledge that the federal government is way too big, and it does way too many things, and very little of what it does it do well. And that consolidation of power has become really very dangerous. It's created an administrative state that is out of control.
You don't like his political positions? Great, but you can't impeach a president because you don't like him. That's not how this system works. You don't get the right to do that. The people of this country do. We live in a republic. I'm just sick of this. I yield back.
Secretary Mayorkas, we have the frustrating responsibility on this committee of providing oversight of your agency, but I have to be honest and tell you, I'm not sure exactly what you do at the Department of Homeland Security other than great harm. On your watch, the data is pretty clear. We've had record levels of illegal immigration, a rapid decline in deportations, skyrocketing fentanyl deaths across our country, and the Secret Service, which is a DHS component, can't determine who left cocaine at the White House.
We stand at a very dangerous time. I'm stating the obvious. We all know that. The world is in turmoil. But a strong America is good for the entire world.
The Speaker of the House has been chosen.
Mr. Reagan.
All right, so the Speaker of the House has finally been chosen, Mike Johnson. But who the heck is Mike Johnson? The primary criteria that conservative Americans have for Speaker of the House is that the Speaker of the House is not controlled by the deep state, that he is a true patriot, that he is not there simply to enrich himself, that he is not there to fight for Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, special interest groups, corrupt labor unions, billionaire activists, or other nations, but rather that he is there to fight for the American people. And it looks like we may have found the guy, and his name is Mike Johnson. But again, who the heck is this guy? I'll get into it in one moment. First, I have to sell you something. Do you want to take control of your financial future, but you don't know where to start? Noble Gold Investments understands. Investing in precious metals may sound confusing, but the team at Noble Gold Investments, they make it easy. Let's hear from some actual Noble Gold Investments customers. One customer says, the staff answered all my questions and helped me every step of the way. Another says, no pressure sales tactics, just honest guidance. And finally, securing my future is less stressful thanks to Noble Gold's expertise. So look, don't settle for financial uncertainty. They will suggest options and see if you can diversify into gold and silver. Right now, Noble Gold Investments is offering a free 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful bullion coin for qualified accounts. Don't settle for financial uncertainty. Noble Gold Investments has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews. Why wait? Go to noblegoldinvestments.com right now, noblegoldinvestments.com, the only gold company that I trust. Okay, so who the heck is Mike Johnson, and why is he so awesome? Now, first of all, this guy fiercely supported Jim Jordan's speakership bid, so these guys seem to be great friends, and Jim Jordan will have a lot more influence with Mike Johnson right there in charge. Now, there is a beautiful list that I found, facts about Mike Johnson. This was compiled by the Twitter user Proud American Brat. I believe her name is Leslie Bless. So thank you, Leslie, for compiling this list. And I will read some of the highlights from that list. He's pro-life. He supported President Trump's executive order prohibiting immigration from 7 Muslim countries. He fought for Donald Trump as a member of his legal defense team during both of his impeachment hearings. This guy is a staunch Trump ally. He's married with 4 children. He's a Christian, and he often leads prayers on the Hill. His mentor is Jim Jordan. He voted for Jim Jordan for Speaker. He voted against certifying Joe Biden's election. He has been actively involved with the investigations into Joe Biden, which to me, that is a huge deal. And then beyond this list, I've got a few other highlights here from reporter Simon Atiba. Mike Johnson was a college professor and a conservative talk show host, which is kind of cool. Kind of the same job that I have almost. He's an attorney with a focus on constitutional law who worked with religious groups, and he served on Trump's first Senate impeachment trial defense team. Mike Johnson sponsored more bills that passed than the average Republican House member. So there you go. That's a nice little laundry list of bullet points. But you know, even with all of this, there might be a lingering question about Mike Johnson in your mind. And that question is, if Mike Johnson is so great, why would the deep state even allow him to be speaker? Do they know something that we don't? And that is a great question. It's a legitimate question. We don't know a lot about this guy. Honestly, I'd never heard of him before yesterday. Because look, Mike Johnson is not a spotlight guy. He's not a flashy attention seeker. He's not trying to get TikTok views or followers on X or Instagram. He's just a low-key lawmaker who seems to quietly believe and fight for all of the right things. And I love that. And you know what? So does everybody else, because everybody in Congress seems to love this guy. At least everybody on the right. Monica Crowley drew my attention to something quite cool. She tweeted, "The first thing Speaker-designate Mike Johnson did last night was to ask the Republican caucus to pray with him. This is exactly what we need at this exact moment." And I thought that was just awesome. And then, of course, the creme de la creme, Donald Trump endorsed this guy.
Mike Johnson's going to do really well. He's popular, he's smart, he's sharp, he's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be a fantastic speaker. I believe that will happen. We'll see what, you'll let me know when I come out. I'll be out in a couple of hours.
And you know, ordinarily I'd just say, okay, if Donald Trump, the guy that I think is, you know, the least corrupt person in Washington, D.C., if he likes this guy, then I like this guy. But the problem with quiet politicians is that it's hard to know what's really going on behind the scenes. And so the question still lingers. Why would the deep state let all of their rhino operatives vote for this guy? And of course, Donald Trump has been fooled before. And honestly, I just kind of hate going along with the crowd. You know, I hate to just listen to all the other conservatives out there and go, you know what? Yep, that's right. And in fact, I rarely do that. There's always some little thing I disagree with or I'm concerned about. But in this case, you know, guys, I've done the research. I've looked into this guy, and there is absolutely nothing that I could find that has raised any red flags. But there is one reason above all else that I love this guy. The left absolutely hates him. Upon hearing the news of Johnson's potential speakership, the delusional girl who proclaimed that every Republican guy secretly wants to date her, AOC, she hyperventilated as usual, and she tweeted, introducing extremist GOP speaker nominee Mike Johnson. He was a key architect of the January 6th strategy to overturn the U.S. election. Here he is, leading a crowd that's booing and telling a congressional correspondent to shut up when asking about it. Now, ironically, he had just led that crowd in a prayer, but AOC twisted it into some kind of bizarre socialist fantasy fiction because that's what leftists do. It's not about reality with them, it's about the perception of reality. But the fact that AOC is panicked about Mike Johnson, I mean, that is the best endorsement that this guy could get in my eyes. And you know this idea that he was like the key architect of the January 6th strategy to overturn the U.S. election and all that? I've been hearing this on CNN, MSNBC all day long. Like, this is their talking point. Somebody put that out, the DNC, whoever it is that puts those talking points out, they put it out. This is what every Democrat is saying right now. So you're going to probably be hearing that a lot. Now, the utterly corrupt and ineffectual deep state hitman, Adam Schiff, wrote, "You might be Googling who Mike Johnson is this morning. Let me make it simple." That's my Adam Schiff impression. "Johnson is a hard-right, pro-Trump, leading election denier in the House. Sadly, this is what passes for speaker material in the Republican conference." You know, I was wrong about AOC's panicked tweet. This is the best endorsement that Mike Johnson could get. Adam Cryon Q. Kinzinger wrote of Mike Johnson, "He led the lawsuit." They've all got the same accent. "He led the lawsuit against the election and sparked the whole thing. Yeah." I mean, if Adam Kinzinger hates someone, what's the opposite of a red flag? whatever. These are all stellar endorsements for Mike Johnson. Now, presumably after soiling himself, Representative Jared Huffman tweeted, "Welcome to the Republican era of not even pretending they aren't forcing their religion on Congress and the American people. This is a slippery, dangerous slope to theocracy." Yeah, how terrifying that a Christian might hold political office in America. You know what? Why are leftists crazy? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, I couldn't find any reaction from the mega rhino known as Liz Cheney, but I did find this tweet from some TDS-infected leftist called Brian Allen. He tweeted, "The Republicans are voting to elect Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson holds a 6 out of 6 rating on the insurrection scorecard. Liz Cheney labels him as extraordinarily destructive, a claim worth heeding. Johnson orchestrated the insurrection bloc, acting not merely as a figurehead, but also as a proficient yet radical litigator and organizer. His presence is genuinely alarming, emphasizing the high stakes involved. Cry more, loser." Mike Levin tweeted, "As House Republicans support Mike Johnson today, we must spread the word about his extremism. Johnson has been called Trump's perfect speaker after his efforts to help overturn the 2020 election. We must take back the House next year. Everything is at stake." Why do they all sound like that? Why do all male Democrats have that voice? Weird. The Twitter user American Atheists wrote, "Mike Johnson is a former attorney and spokesperson for the Christian nationalist group." Christian nationalists, okay. "Alliance Defending Freedom. He was given an award by the anti-LGBTQ and Christian supremacist hate group Family Research Council." These people are so crazy. And they go on and say, "He has defended coercive teacher-led school prayer." Yeah, go back. Teacher-led school prayer. Oh, how horrible of this guy. You know what? This last one, I think this is my favorite endorsement of all. If the atheists hate you for being too Christian, you got to be doing something right. And look, there are countless other crazy tweets like these. They're panicked, hateful tweets. MSNBC, CNN, these guys are going crazy right now. They're screaming about how evil Mike Johnson is.
His hardline position against trans care, hardline position on LGBTQ plus rights, hardline position on abortion, and certainly the votes that we've seen him take going against shutting down the government as recently as 4 weeks ago. They are things that put him in line with the more conservative parts of this conference. One person with a Democratic advocacy group, Human Rights Campaign, described him to me as Jim Jordan with a jacket and a smile.
He was one of the leaders in decertifying the election result.
It was his strategy, and he was the chief whip for Donald Trump in getting Republicans to sign on to this absurd lawsuit.
Earth 2 has a new mayor. House Republicans have finally elected a speaker. The man they picked to be their leader was a critical architect of the legal and policy pieces that made up the coup plot. The New York Times once called him, quote, the most important architect of the Electoral College objections that were raised even after the deadly violence of January 6 imperiled their own lives. His record led the Bulwark today to say he has a, quote, coup on his resume. If the Republican drive to end democracy is a play in 4 acts, this has to be one of them.
You know, there's just nothing here that is about governing. The person who's third in line to the presidency doesn't believe the current president is legally elected, so doesn't believe we live in a democracy and believes that we live in an occupied country. That's kind of difficult to wrap your mind around.
He's someone who simply provided some of the attempted rationale for how to overturn an election.
Now, I read one report that Mike Johnson got a boost because Donald Trump endorsed him, and Trump seemed to suggest the same thing himself.
This time yesterday, nobody was thinking of Mike, and then we put out the word, and now he's the Speaker of the House. So I want to just thank all of the supporters that I have, and I want to thank all of the supporters that Mike has. And again, he'll be a great speaker. I think you're going to be very proud of him. Thank you, everybody.
But Donald Trump also endorsed Jim Jordan, and yet Republicans in the House would not vote him in. So what the heck happened with Jim Jordan? Well, according to Matt Gaetz, it was Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy wanted to regain his speakership, and he was trying to block anyone else who could possibly get it.
The chapter of this that was dispositive, the crescendo, begins as Tom Emmer is withdrawing from the race yesterday. So as Emmer is withdrawing, Mark Molinaro, a moderate New York freshman Republican, stands up at the microphone and says, well, instead of restarting this process and having a candidate forum and sending everybody home for a good cry, let's just take a non-binding poll on where people would be on the person who came in second to Tom Emmer, and that was Mike Johnson. And Elise Stefanik said, well, that's against the rules. The rules don't contemplate it. We can't do that. And brilliantly, Mark Molinaro says, then I move for unanimous consent that the rules be waived and we take a poll on whether or not Mike Johnson could be our speaker nominee. And guess who objects to that unanimous consent request? Kevin McCarthy.
Who was that?
Kevin McCarthy stands up and erupts and says, I object to doing a roll call on Mike Johnson. And here was the thing. It showed everyone that it was actually McCarthy who was working to knife Scalise. It was actually McCarthy who was working to knife Jim Jordan. It was McCarthy working to knife everyone. And he hadn't yet figured out a way to knife Mike Johnson. And so he was worried that there was going to be this great unifying moment, and he scuttled the unifying moment. And everyone in the room knew at that moment that I wasn't the force for chaos. I wasn't causing disunity. That for the last 3 weeks, the reason the House of Representatives has been paralyzed is because for his own selfish gain, Kevin McCarthy was sabotaging the candidacy of anyone else because he was plotting a return.
So that's the truth right there. Matt Gaetz gave us the inside scoop. And this is actually incredible, guys, because after the Jim Jordan vote, I was kind of irate. I was thinking, what the hell is wrong with these Republicans? These guys are clearly exposing themselves as deep state stooges. But you know what? Maybe not. Maybe they're just McCarthy loyalists. And look, I do believe that some Republican lawmakers are compromised. I do think that some of them are beholden to the deep state. However, maybe it's not as bad as we think. The 6 core Republican Never Jordans who really derailed Jim Jordan's possible speakership are Ken Buck, Don Bacon, Carlos Jimenez, Mike Lawler, Mario Diaz-Balart, and Mike Kelly. Now, some of these guys are clearly rhinos. Ken Buck opposes Donald Trump. He defends Joe Biden. He voted to certify Biden's electors. He's positioned himself against January 6th defendants, and he said that he wants to go work for CNN. Okay. Clearly, this guy is a rhino. Don Bacon voted for Biden's BS infrastructure bill. Clearly a rhino. But then we move on to Mario Diaz-Balart, and this guy seems to be pretty solidly conservative, so I suspect that he is just a McCarthy loyalist. And then there's Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly also seems like a solid guy. He's a staunch defender of Trump, and I couldn't find a single thing to suggest that he's anything but a loyal conservative patriot. So again, I suspect that he's just a Kevin McCarthy loyalist, which, it's fair enough. So of these guys, it seems to me that some of them are just McCarthy loyalists and some of them are compromised rhinos. But I think maybe that we're sometimes too quick to throw people under the bus and call them rhinos just for one thing that seems suspect. And this is great, this gives me a lot of hope because, maybe things in D.C., at least on the Republican side, maybe they're more positive than we think. But look, Matt Gaetz knows a heck of a lot more about this than I do, and if this is more of an internal battle, then that is what it is, and the rhino problem might be, not as much of an issue as we actually tend to think. And here's why I'm so optimistic. Here's why I have so much hope for the future right now. Because everyone who voted against Jim Jordan, they've all voted for Mike Johnson. They've all voted for Mike Johnson. Right now, I am just cautiously optimistic. Like I said, I believe Mike Johnson is brilliant. And again, the most compelling argument that Mike Johnson is the right man for speaker is that Democrats clearly hate him, which makes me absolutely love him. Well, that's it for me. Don't forget to buy some of my t-shirts and hats and mugs from my Teespring site to support the Mr. Reagan YouTube channel. Let me know what you think about Mike Johnson in the comment section below. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
Someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism. And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, but total government control and regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says, less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.